Daniel chapter 2. I mentioned early on when we stepped into this book of Daniel, sort of walking with just a little remnant of the Israelites from Judah up to Babylon, but God is going to reveal himself as sovereign over all the nations, sovereign over actually every movement in the universe. And with Daniel, the book of Daniel, God is showing up in little details all throughout. And in particular this morning, I'm going to have us remind us or try to bring out some of that focus on his timing and how he orchestrates your lives in particular, just like we were talking about with some of his praises, but he orchestrates your steps, and we're not always paying attention, which is that's our problem, right? Mm-hmm. And it becomes God's problem, I guess, if we don't pay attention to him. But in terms, he would like to use us wherever our steps go, and of course, if he's guiding them, he would have us be a witness wherever we are. And he has dramatically guided Daniel's steps, and he is now in Babylon. I say guiding his steps. What that means, actually we need to just put a little pause button right there already, because I could talk about Joseph. He guided Joseph's steps. When your steps are guided by the Lord, sometimes it feels like you have been taken captive. You are completely mercilessly out of power. You have no freedom. It feels like you don't feel in control. In fact, you feel controlled. You feel and you feel like God is gone. That Joseph story is powerful in that respect, because when you and I, I'll just use me. When I think of God leading me, I have wonderful times. Right? He leadeth me. We sing that. And in our minds, at least again in my mind, that is a wonderful path. But I don't sing He leadeth me thinking that I am now thrown into a dungeon by my brothers and eventually sold just because they didn't want to kill me. Well, not all of them, at least. And sold to traders that are going to haul me away to a land I've never seen before, have maybe heard of, but that's it. And sold to people that I don't understand, I don't even recognize the language and whatever else. And then I'm eventually tossed into prison for accusations that aren't true. None of that feels like being led by God. Now we get the beauty of standing on this side of the Bible looking in, and we go, oh wow, isn't that amazing what God did? Well, I'm glad he did it to Joseph and not me. Because who wants that kind of leading? Do you want that kind of leading? Well, I know what intellectually we should say. We should say yes. But my emotions, my flesh doesn't want that worth a hill of beans. Who wants that? Now, so what you have to come to, of course, is a want of God's will beyond whatever you come up with. And then the challenge is going to be, will I go to the cross? Jesus had to do it, just like that.
Obedience.
So, when we read a book of Daniel, it's filled with these beautiful, wonderful stories. But you need to put yourself, or try to put yourself into this scenario, and it makes it all the more remarkable of Daniel's reaction in it. He has made himself available, if you would, to God's design of his life. And it's not one that we would wish on ourselves or on most others around us. But Daniel's life is going to be revealed in the book of Daniel. It's going to be revealed with God's intricate timing and his movement in a place where we would rather not be. And that, of course, hey, welcome. Wow, have you got a praise report?
All throughout harvest, I've been praying for strength, and somehow He just keeps.
Amen. Wonderful.
That is it.
Wonderful stuff. We are in the book of Daniel, chapter 2. It just began. We're talking about God's sovereignty in the midst of everything, in fact, and His leading of us, and in particular, His leading of us in ways that we have to broaden our view of God. We have such a great tendency to put God in a box, and we do it when we talk about we want Him to lead us. And if truth be told, what we mean is we want Him to lead us where we want to go.
Exactly.
Yeah, we are a funny bunch of sheep.
You had a
But
question here with Jay.
Yeah, we're going to get there, absolutely. So that is sort of what we're going to dive into this morning in some depth with our man Daniel and, of course, his friends. Now, Daniel, didn't wake up one day and said, hey, I'm going to follow the Lord even if He takes me to Babylon. What he did do at some point, obviously, is I'm going to follow the Lord no matter what. And we know that of his friends as well, right? Because that comes out in this book. And it comes out early, and it comes out frequently, and it comes out pointedly. One of the biggest points of this book is to get a place in your own mind where you're resigned to that place before God, that you will do His will despite what He decides that is for you.
We listened to this last week. We had taped Robert Morrison. He had his whole half hour. He had an interview with Netanyahu.
Okay.
Really?
Yes.
That one, and it was done just before the elections.
Yes.
He hadn't been elected in yet.
Yeah.
But now he's been elected in yet. So
Yes, he's back in.
He just said it was very interesting, the interview, because there's been so much controversy about him over the years, right?
Wow.
Too, whatever it is, and this way he explained how he had grown up and his vision he follows. He didn't say that he believes that. He says Jesus was definitely not. He didn't say a prophet. He said Jewish rabbi. But
Hey, you're welcome.
yeah, but he followed that, and then how he brought up, and he has a book out, and Robert Morris had read it, and he said it was very interesting. It's called BB, a book of short chapters of his whole life when that he feels his mission is
Yeah.
for Israel, you know.
Very interesting. Yeah, I see. Well, when I heard that news, he's going to be back in power, I'm thinking God is stirring it. I mean, you just see God's movement across the world, of course. But anyways, He is going to show Himself in amazing ways in Daniel. Daniel chapter 2. So hold your place there. But I want you to flip over just for a moment over to the New Testament book of Luke. And yeah, I want you to come to Luke chapter 1, and this, of course, we're coming up pretty rapidly to our Christmas season. And one of the most beautiful sort of announcements that's in the Bible is this angel coming to Mary. So, and that's called the Annunciation in some Bibles, of course. Luke chapter 1 and verse 31. This is the angel's already speaking now, it says. Verse 31 says this, "And behold, thou shalt conceive in thy womb and bring forth a son, and shalt call his name Jesus. And he shall be great, and shall be called the Son of the Highest, and the Lord God shall give unto him the throne of his father David." Now we have spent a long time walking with the nation of Israel from David, right, with the kingdoms. That is the kingdom of Israel and Judah. And we are going to continue that now, of course, through the lineage that continues on through Jesus. But it says He shall give unto him the throne of his father David, and he shall reign over the house of Jacob forever. And then it says this, and of his kingdom there shall be no end. And I want to underscore for you that word kingdom. It's very interesting. If you do a word search on that word kingdom, it's going to show up, at least, and I'll depend on the version of course. So I'm going to give you numbers from the King James, but that word kingdom shows up 44 times in the book of Daniel. That's not that surprising, right? Because it's not. But that is one of the most frequent discussions on kingdom that happens in your Bible. Now, the other book that mentions it 44 times is the book of Luke. Now, and Matthew, by the way, in Matthew, this isn't surprising either with Matthew, if you have some sense of what Matthew is talking. He's talking to his people, and he brings up that word kingdom. It's like 55 times. There's not a lot of close seconds. There's some that are in the 20s, but they quickly drop down to sometimes the book will mention it once, sometimes twice, and that kind of thing. But the book of Daniel mentions, it's a pretty small book, and there is 44 mentions of that word kingdom and the concept around it. What do you think God's going to talk about in the book of Daniel? Kingdoms. He is, remember, we walked through what God intended with his plan for Israel was going to be this kingdom on earth, right? God speaks of it as the kingdom, the nation of Israel. They were given a kingdom, and then they blew it, if you would. And God's going to continue that kingdom, of course, we know through Jesus Christ. That's what the promise to David was. What he did, he's changed plans. We said that. There was no more remedy for this thing that he had laid out for them because of the people. They just disobeyed him. They weren't willing, listen carefully, they were not willing to go where the will of God wanted them to go. They didn't do it. And then God said, okay, we're not going to fix this thing now. We're going to change it. That plan's done. Now my plan, guys, I'm actually going to tell you, you're going to be in captivity for 70 years. And he starts dropping this 70 thing. Right? And we're going to hear about that a bit. There's going to be 70 weeks, and there were 70 this and 70 that. I mean, he's moving. God is moving. But now, this is the kind of movement that I don't necessarily want in my life. When he takes me out from where I am, right, my people, from my nation, from my comfort zone, and he moves me into a place that I would much, much rather not be at. And the book of Daniel is going to open up this view into kingdoms. And then even for today, what about these visions? All this plan that God had for the nation of Israel to be this beautiful light, to draw all nations to this God of the Israelites, so that they would see the God of all creation and be drawn to him. That place, that thing that was to be, is not going to work that way. And now he's going to work in a different way. And now we're going to step into little details of a single man's life, or a couple of men's lives, if you would, with his friends. And what he wanted to do with the nation of Israel, he's going to do with one man. You've heard this all your life if you've been in the church, right? What God can do with one person who's willing, right? It's unlimited. It's only as limited as God is. Right? Yeah.
God and me are a majority.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And the problem, of course, is he wanted to be that majority with the nation of Israel. And they rejected him, so to speak. And now we have a single man, Daniel, who we're going to read about here in chapter 2. So let's go to early part of chapter 2. And again, I'm going to underline for you one of these thoughts that I want to bring up. God's timing in the life of a man, Daniel, who has said before he ever got here, before he got to this place, He said, I am going to just follow God wherever he has me. And it appears to be the same thing that Joseph said in his young heart. Wherever God has me, I will stay true to him. The stuff that Joseph dealt with doesn't get dealt with the way he dealt with it unless you say, I'm going to just stay with God. Daniel has done the same thing. Daniel, it says in chapter 2, in the second year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar dreamed dreams. We talked about this last time. All this sovereign work of God, even in the unsaved world and those around, he is who put the dreams there. God did, right? Excuse me. But he didn't let him sleep, wherewith his spirit was troubled and his sleep brake from him. Then the king commanded to call the magicians and the astrologers and the sorcerers and the Chaldeans for to show the king his dreams. So they came and stood before the king. And the king said unto them, I have dreamed a dream, and my spirit was troubled to know the dream. I want you to hit a pause button because you know what the story is. We're going to go on. We're going to read it yet, but where's Daniel? It's not there. Second year of Nebuchadnezzar, and this place that Daniel is going to have in the kingdom is not quite settled yet. They called all the magicians and all these guys. Well, where does Daniel fit in? Right with these guys, right? And he's not called. He is one already. When the heads are going to get chopped off, he's going to be on the lineup. But he's not here. What does that mean? That means his place is not cemented yet in terms of, right, that place that God has planned for him, right, that is going to be yet, is not there. Joseph had that same deal, right? When you get to the place that God intends you, there's going to be a bulb, a light bulb that goes on, LED by now. It's going to come on. Do you remember, I should have done this, but do you remember, if you recall the story of Joseph, and he's going through this, and he's 17 when he gets tossed into that hole, and then, it is something like 17 years later, right, that his brothers are all of a sudden standing in front of him, and it's like the story in his mind had almost gone. And then he looked at, and the Bible says, and then he remembered the dream that he had about his brothers bowing before him. Boom, the light bulb just went on. Do you know what all the things that would have flashed through his mind, Joseph's mind, at that point? All the years that I spent in the dungeon, agonizing and wondering what God was up to, and then in particular those last 2 years when I thought for sure I was going to get out any day, right? That thing, when it finally clicked now, and it washed through his mind all the sovereignty of God in every step, every one of those, I'm going to call them lousy days. I don't know how lousy they were, but I'm assuming some of them must have been pretty lousy in the dungeon, right? And now he has come to a place where it matches exactly his dream that he had when he was a young teenager.
And he wouldn't have been asking, why did I have to go through all that for this?
Exactly. Now the God, right, that you had in your mind would just explode, mushroom into something so much bigger. Daniel's place hasn't quite arrived here. We talked last week about the giftings that God has given you and your place in God's world. You guys, listen, you're no different than Daniel. I'm no different than Daniel. Any person that God has created is like Daniel. It is one of his children, so to speak. And what would he have you do? Well, I guarantee you have no idea.
So why am I still in school?
But his imagination is quite unlimited. And what he can do with you, if you are willing, if you have this mindset that you are just willing to do it, You know, my problem is when I get into these positions, I'm so grumbling and complaining, I can't see the light of day anywhere.
Then it's hard to obey.
It's, exactly, and then it's hard to obey. Daniel is not in his place yet, it's coming, but God is setting the stage, and you can see God's finger working through this history, right? But Daniel's not there. What has to happen first? Well, one of the first things that has to happen is the dream, right? That's sort of how this, if you would, how this scene opens up. The dream happens. And then he forgets the dream. Man, he just, my wife, my dear wife, she falls asleep like that when we start driving. I can drive from here to Horndine. And she will have a dream on the way. She did it just yesterday, and she woke up and she said she had a dream, but she couldn't remember. I said, "You're just like Nebuchadnezzar." We didn't pray for any revelation, but a few things had to happen, and God had to allow them to happen to get there. The king, verse 3 said unto them, "I've dreamed a dream, and my spirit was troubled to know the dream. Then spake the Chaldeans to the king in Syriac, O king, live forever. Tell thy servants the dream, and we will show the interpretation." Remember, we walked through this, and the king answered and said to the Chaldeans, "The thing is gone from me," just like my wife said, "and if ye will not make known unto me the dream, the interpretation thereof, ye shall be cut in pieces." That is a nice bit of threat right there. So, now, "and your houses shall be made a dunghill." Okay. All right, now that's a pretty unreasonable request. But, remember we talked about, I do believe, he, like the rest of the world, they're screaming for truth. When you are troubled in this world, when you are really seriously troubled in this world, and I'm not talking about you don't know God, it doesn't matter whether you do or not, whether you're really troubled when you reach that place of deep, deep troubledness in this world, you just want the truth. And you don't want any loopholes remaining. Because anybody can make up an interpretation of a dream. That's just a fact. And I guarantee you this. If you threaten to cut me in pieces unless I come up with one, I will come up with one. Yes? I bet you could too. We would all be, amazingly, we would all be magicians and sorcerers in a moment of time if the threat happened. So he's saying no. So what has God just done? By giving him the dream and taking away the memory of the dream, he has set up a place where nothing's going to work except the truth. Really? Yeah. Yes. And you were created for such a time as this. God is going to bring you and me. He would have us be available in our lives so that when occasion arises and you have no idea of the people that he brings across your path and they are desperate for the truth now, like right now. And my ears are now open, but it's got to be the truth. For my wife was a guy with a sandwich board saying, "Jesus is coming, are you staying or going?" Because the time had come when she was willing to read it and consider it that it was Jesus. Well, she could have seen that sign for 30 years. It would have made no difference. But now it made a difference. There's people in your life that you can make a difference of being available for God to use when the timing is right. God is setting up the timing. Do you know who cares about Nebuchadnezzar's eternity? Jesus Christ, right? And all the people around Babylon, in fact. We're going to spend some time, I'm trying to get a handle on what Babylon looked like. There's some amazing stories. It was so amazing, and then it was exaggerated again. So, and there's accounts, and there's controversy. There's people that say that some of those walls were 350 feet tall. The walls around Babylon. That's why they think it's exaggeration. 350 feet tall.
Is that scripture based?
Well, they were magnificent. That's where they're trying to reconcile all this with written accounts and historians and so forth and all that, and then archaeological days, which is where they're doubting some of the 350. But regardless, when you some of the magnificence, excuse me again, of what that city had been built as was in the mind of Nebuchadnezzar. Can you imagine if you were the guy that said, "This is what I built"? This city, and it is absolutely mind-blowing, magnificent. And that this man, right, is going to be brought to a place fairly early in life here, where he is going early in his kingdom life, where he is going to need to see the truth. And brought this here's even more important. He's going to be brought to a place where he's actually looking for it. And that's what he's doing. But he says, verse 6, "But if you show me the dream, the interpretation thereof, ye shall receive of me gifts and rewards and great honor." He's going to go on. We read this last week, so we'll read it all. And verse 10, "The Chaldeans answered before the king and said, There is not a man upon the earth that can show the king's matter." And that's absolutely true. That's one of the few phrases that those guys have actually told the truth about, right? They've been sorcering to this guy for whatever, and none of that was true. This one, this is true. They got this one right. Yeah, there's nobody that can do that. There's nobody, and because nobody can do that, there wouldn't be any. Now they must have been pretty tactful here, but there wouldn't be anybody stupid enough to ask us to do that. Is what they're telling the king, right? They're going to say, "Therefore there's no king, lord, or ruler that asks such things of any magician, astrologer, or Chaldean." So you're being unreasonable. He says, "Okay, well, this is all unreasonable I'm going to be. You guys are going to lose your heads." So he says, thank you. "For this cause the king was angry and very furious, and commanded to destroy all the wise men of Babylon." Done. All of them. "And the decree went forth that the wise men should be slain, and they sought Daniel and his fellows to be slain," because he wasn't there. He wasn't in the presence. In fact, when they're going to come up and find him right now, which happens, verse 14 and on, "Daniel answered the counsel and wisdom of Arioch, the captain of the king's guard, which was gone forth to slay the wise men of Babylon. He answered and said to Arioch, the king's captain, Why is the decree so hasty?" Well, because he's irritated. That's why. He's irritated and he wants the truth, and he wants it now, and he doesn't want any of this make-believe junk that he's been, subject to over the years.
The boxes in
But he just wants the truth.
running.
Then Daniel went in. Okay, so now,
But he hadn't forgotten. Like Nebuchadnezzar knows what the dream is, right?
now he says it's gone from him.
Okay, my version doesn't say that, I don't think. But where does it say that? Because I thought he's just using this.
They bring the
He's just being very wise. Because anybody can make up a story on
These
it.
adults studying.
Well, it could be that, but let's see. I will.
It's what they told
He said the
Kurt.
thing is gone from me.
The thing is gone. Yeah, it says, what verse is that?
5.
5.
But he's just saying that, I mean, he could
She's
be
gonna
lying.
run.
The king answered and said to the Chaldeans, "The thing is gone from me." So that's what it says in verse 5.
Well, mine says the word from me is firm. If you don't, he doesn't say that at all.
Okay. Or,
Surprised me as well.
My feeling is that he knows what the dream is.
he may, but if,
But because the way he talks to them is that you guys can make something up. I realize that.
Yeah.
And if you don't tell me what the dream was to start with, how can you interpret what?
yeah, it works the same either way.
Yeah.
That is, the king is not gonna reveal the unknown aspect of it
Right.
if he knows
Okay,
it.
I just wondering where you
Either
got
way.
that from, so yours is.
Yes, it says it distinctly there, yeah.
But then if it truly had been gone from him and somebody told him what it was, he would recognize it.
Yeah, right.
So
Yeah.
there,
That's another way, yeah.
Well, I think that is how I've understood it,
Okay.
similar to Maggie, if I had, when she woke up and said, "Oh, I know exactly what you drank," and I started talking about it, she'd go, "How in the world?" Because she would have, I'm assuming, recognized it. Okay, so, moving to verse 15. He answered and said to Arioch, the king's captain, "Why is the decree so hasty from the king?" Then Arioch made the thing known to Daniel. Now, God's timing. So Daniel was living his life here in this Babylonian Empire now, in his new place or whatever, and he was one of the wise men because he had been chosen, right? And him and his buddies, they were already, groomed for the king's palace. He was known as a wise man. He was going to be in the lineup, as I said, of those that were going to lose their lives because of the king's hasty decision. Now it's time. And he didn't hear the announcement. He didn't hear about the mess until now. And now it's time. So now God is opening up a new step in his life. Now what's he going to do? Because now it's come to him, and now God has just revealed to Daniel something pretty interesting, to say the least. Are you willing to step out now, stick your neck out and say, okay, this is it. This is why I'm here. Because he's going to have to say, but Daniel went in and desired the king that he would give him time and that he would show the king the interpretation. He doesn't have the interpretation. So how do you know you're going to get it?
He doesn't even know the dream.
Doesn't know the dream, doesn't know anything about it, but he walked into the king and said, give me some time.
But he had found favor with the king.
He had found favor with the
And
king.
I'm surprised that he even got to a
This is a very interesting little statement there, because it looks like he was given privilege to just walk in. If you're a wise man right now, you're probably not in
any shape or form at all,
exactly. But he got in.
because you're fighting for your life at this point.
So he says, verse 17, then Daniel went to his house. Now this is interesting, and he sat down with his buddies, and he said, and he made the thing known to them. What thing? We're going to lose our heads unless God gives us not only the dream, but the interpretation of the dream. Now they have got something very specific in front of them, a task. And their lives are in the balance, but so are all the lives of all these other wise men. Because the king's already made this hasty decree, right? This guy was already fulfilling his orders. He was going out. So they sit down, and verse 18 says that they would desire mercies of the God of heaven concerning this secret, because that's what it is. It is a secret. It is either a secret only to God, one that God knows, or potential, Dwayne mentioned, maybe Nebuchadnezzar knows a part of it. But it is absolutely a secret to everyone else. And now they're asking God, okay, is this it? And so they're going to sit down. It says, they desire mercies of the God of heaven concerning this secret, that Daniel and his fellows should not perish with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. In verse 19, God's timing. Now, they had a good incentive. Yes? They had a good incentive. I'm going to go do a fast forward. Remember, these guys are going to get another opportunity to see if they stand for God or not. Not Daniel, but the other guys.
Daniel does too.
And Daniel will too. Yeah.
Lions.
And so, are you going to stand with God or not? Will he reveal the thing or not? Is he going to save us from the fire or not? Maybe, maybe not, but either way we're going to stay with God. And so it says, verse 19, then was the secret revealed unto Daniel in a night vision. What a night. Now, the other guys didn't get to take, they're not brought into that deal, right? But Daniel is. So the other guys must have woke up going, okay, I wonder what happened, because nothing happened to me.
They're still sweating.
They're still sweating. God's timing it's like one layer at a time. It's just opening up bit by bit, bit by bit. But it's hard to put yourself, when you're reading this through, it's easy to just read past it and just go on and go on, but these are real lives just like yours and mine, right? Mm-hmm. And now they've just heard a decree that they are going to get killed. Unless God is merciful and does the absolute possible and shows them what Nebuchadnezzar's dream is. And they three go to bed and wake up and they don't have nothing more. They're in the same place they were yesterday. But Daniel wakes up and God gave him the vision. Wow. Now, I'm sure there were some high fives if they figured out how to do that back then. Because these guys, their buddy Daniel got it. Awesome. So, verse 19, the secret was revealed unto Daniel in a night vision. Then Daniel blessed the God of heaven. Daniel answered and said, Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. I want to pause on that. I want you to come to Luke 10. I'm going to flip back into there a little bit. Luke chapter 10. Okay. Chapter 10. Say 10. Yes. Okay. Verse 17. Luke chapter 10, verse 17. And it says, and the how many returned? I don't know why he's doing the 17. I don't know. He likes the number. Okay? And he's going to say, it's very interesting. The 70 returned again with joy, saying, Lord, even the devils are subject unto us through thy name. So they're high-fiving, right? And he said to them, I beheld Satan as lightning fall from heaven. Behold, I give unto you power to tread on serpents and scorpions and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall by any means hurt you. Notwithstanding, in this rejoice not that the spirits are subject unto you, but rather rejoice because your names are written in heaven. And then it says, in that hour Jesus rejoiced in the Spirit, said, I thank thee, O Lord, O Father, Lord of heaven and earth, that thou hast hid these things from the wise and prudent, and hast revealed them unto babes. Daniel is sort of a babe. He's just young. He's not the, hey, welcome. He's not this seasoned 80-year-old plus Moses guy. He's a young guy. And we read in chapter 1 how God gave him and his friends wisdom above. They were 10 times better than all the other guys, right? God is the one that reveals and gives wisdom. All of this is God's sovereignty and his dispensation, if you would, of gifts and abilities in the world so that his people can do his work. And Daniel's time has come. Daniel's going to be given this gift of interpreting dreams. And God is going to use it a number of times through this book. It's a very special gift. It's not one that you see much of in the Bible at all. And his buddies don't have it. Man, I wish I was a nose. Right? Isn't that what Paul talks about? Or I wish I was the eyes. Or I wish I was the hands instead of the feet. That's not your deal. That is not your deal. Your deal is to look in the mirror, physical one and in this one, and say, what has God given to me as my gifts for him? And then be available to be used by God with those gifts that he gave you when the timing is there. Well, the time is now, right, for Daniel. The secret was revealed to him in a night vision. Daniel blessed God. And for blessed be the name, he says in verse 20, blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. We talked about that. This is what he does. He reveals wisdom and might. And by the way, this verse, it says, Daniel answered and said, blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. This means all wisdom, all might, right? This is like that omnipotence might. It's all power, right? And omniscience. It's knowing everything. That's what God has, right? And he's going to distribute it as he sees fit. And he has given a little bit of that to Daniel. Does he give him all his might? No. And if he wants to give you lots, he can give you lots, but he gave Daniel a little might, if you would, and a little wisdom. You know, think on this. You know, Daniel could be actually a complete idiot and everything else. All he has to do is know the interpretation of the dream. And, right, he gets that from God. So, take heart. I can take heart in this because I don't have to know everything else. I just should be available for what God has gifted me with and be willing to use that for God.
I guess that's the key, availability.
Availability. So it says, verse 21, he goes on, he's praising the Lord. He changeth the times and the seasons. He removeth kings and setteth up kings. Well, he sure did that with Judah. He removed them all, and now he set up a world kingdom with Nebuchadnezzar. And he gives wisdom unto the wise, knowledge to them that know understanding. He revealeth the deep and secret things. He knoweth what is in the darkness, and the light dwelleth with him. This is why ungratefulness is so ugly. When we take God's water, put it in a bottle and sell it. Like what? You invented it? Well, no, but I charge as if I did. I'm picking on water because it's so easy. Like, it's not our stuff. But it wasn't your wisdom. It's not your ability. He gives you the breath you breathe. He gives every neuron in your brain the ability to do the neuron thing. Send electrical messages back and forth and keep your heart beating. And all the billion other things that have to go on in your body every second so that you keep ticking. And you pick up yourself, or I pick up myself, and I walk through this life as if I built myself and made myself, and all the wisdom's from me because I'm so smart and I've studied so much and did all that, and now I can finally give you guys some. You guys are lucky. That is what we are up against with ourselves. Daniel has a very stable view of where he is in God's universe. He's a child of God, available by and for God. The New Testament will tell us, Colossians will tell us, that we were made by Jesus Christ and for Jesus Christ. Our purpose is nailed down. It's settled. Now, with my difficult free will scenario, I take my free will and I take what God has given me and I use it for me and I make money. And then I get prideful because of all the money I've made because I'm so good. We have, boy, we got challenges in this world. We have great challenges, and it's the biggest ones are inside us. I don't know, when I see a man like Daniel, the guy has got, it's amazing stability in knowing who he is. Our self-image, our self-worth, and all that. By the way, you know, you take the billionaires, and all the people, and they have a low self-image. If you scrape away all the stuff, they're insecure. You take the most beautiful people on the planet, they're insecure about their looks. It's all this. The things of the world are not going to get you to a place where Daniel is, where he's settled apparently with where God has him in the world, even though he's not in Judah. And by the way, when we're talking here, Judah is still existing, right? They're still floundering around there with the few last kings. He is in a totally new world, if you would, right now, and he is doing God's work, in a place and doing what God wanted to do with that stuff back there, but they didn't do it, and now he's going to do it here. And he started with this little trickling of events with the dream and moving it forward. He revealeth the deep and secret things, verse 22. Well, this was a secret thing. He knoweth what is in the darkness, and the light dwelleth with him. And I thank thee, praise thee, O God. This is the opposite. Thankfulness, right? Gratefulness for what God has given you in your place on this planet. And this is it. He's going to be used. Now watch. He says, O thou God of my fathers, who hast given me wisdom and might. He just mentioned the wisdom and might in verse 20, right? He is all wisdom and all might, and now you've given me some of this wisdom and might. That's it. That is it. What you have is from God. Every last bit of it. All of it. It's all of God. It's amazing. It's amazing. And we have, it actually simplifies life. It's all his, right? This is, a pastor preached recently, at least on tithing, but this is that idea. It helps you set whose is what. It's all God's. Giving back a bit of what is his is hardly an issue. Right? You understand? If I give him 10% of what's mine, that's different than giving him 10% of what's his. So it's a mindset thing, and God would have us be in his mindset, in God's mindset. Verse 24. Therefore Daniel went in unto Arioch, whom the king had ordained to destroy the wise men of Babylon. He went and said thus unto him, destroy not the wise men of Babylon. He's actually saving people now, right? Daniel is saving people. It's physical, but you have a pretty good idea that what's going to happen. He's going to rise in prominence in every sorcerer, every magician, every wise man's eyes forevermore. Right? If you're a wise man, you're having trouble figuring something out, I think I'd go to Daniel. Right? Especially you don't want to walk into the situation again where your head's going to get lopped off if you so I think I might just inquire of Daniel if it comes down when push comes to shove. I'll even push my pride aside, because all these guys were now willing to push their pride aside, I'm sure. It says, verse 25, and Arioch brought in Daniel before the king in haste, and said thus unto him, I have found a man of the captives of Judah, that will make known unto the king the interpretation. The king answered and said to Daniel, whose name was Belshazzar, art thou able to make known unto me the dream which I have seen and the interpretation? Daniel answered in the presence of the king and said, the secret which the king hath demanded cannot the wise men and astrologers, the magicians, the soothsayers show unto the king, but there is a God in heaven that revealeth secrets, and maketh known to the king Nebuchadnezzar what shall be in the latter days. Thy dream and the visions of thy head upon thy bed are these. Now he's going to go on and he's going to reveal that dream. He says, as for thee, O king, thy thoughts came into thy mind upon thy bed, what should come to pass hereafter? Pause button. Okay. Do you know all that God had intended to do with that nation of Israel, right? There was no more remedy. And now in the mouths of babes, this little Daniel guy, he is going to stand before the world-powered king, Nebuchadnezzar, and he is going to reveal interpretation of a dream that God gave to Nebuchadnezzar. And this is prophetic. Like big time. This is as big as it gets. Some of the most amazing and most profound prophetic utterances are given to a man who leads the Gentiles, if you would, as a world power, Nebuchadnezzar. They were stuck in his brain. What about all those guys in Judah? That's not where he did it. He didn't even do it with Jeremiah. He did some, but he didn't do this stuff. He's going to now peel back a layer of revelation like few other. And he doesn't. Now, think this through a bit. Why didn't he just stick it in Daniel's head? Why not? Well, I don't know exactly, other than part of the reason is because Judah is not a world power. Were they intended to be? I don't know. I'm probably. I would think that there'd be very little place for them to be if they had done everything that God had said they were supposed to do, and no sickness that touched Egypt would hit them. Right? Nothing. I mean, all those promises that he laid out, God laid out for the nation of Israel, if they did, just followed him and became the city on a hill that would be so magnificent, it would be unbelievable. And because of the glory of God there, and all the nations would go, wow. And would God allow them to reach all the other nations? I expect so. But
So
it
why
couldn't
does
work.
Nebuchadnezzar get the wow?
Yeah, but now Nebuchadnezzar is going to get the wow. Because that other thing didn't have a remedy anymore. It was done. We're shutting that down, and we're going to go to plan B, C, D, E, F, G, or whatever, wherever we're at now. But he's going to now, God is still going to do what he said he was going to do. His purpose is still going to come to pass, and we won't get into it right at the end of our time here, but we're going to look at this dream next time. But he is going to start unfolding layer after layer of prophecy, the future kingdoms of the world, powers that are to be, and not just so that you know about the powers. What is his end purpose? To reveal the Messiah. How many times when we talked about Judah and Israel, all this was, the main purpose stayed the same. It was to reveal the Messiah to the world. Because unless they find the Messiah, the world goes to hell.
That's right.
And everybody else as well. Right? Jew, Gentile, the same. Unless you find the Messiah, it doesn't end any different. And that purpose stayed the same, but his plan changed, and now we're going to be dealing with Nebuchadnezzar. And so he puts it in Nebuchadnezzar's mind. And of course, no human being could even figure out, what in the world are you talking about? How could you? Because it's God's deal.
And yet by the time of Belshazzar, that is all flickered away.
Well, it's amazing. And we're going to get to that as well. But it's absolutely, it's just profound how God did it. And the babe, if you would, Daniel, is in just the right place at just the right time, in just the right circumstances, so that he's going to sit down now with the king of the world, if you would, and give him an interpretation of the future events all the way to the end of time. Really? Yes, really. It's just amazing. And that's how he's going to do it. Let's bow our heads. Heavenly Father, thank you for your revelation, your book. And you take babes, that means you can use every one of us. And you can use the gifts that you put in us in exactly the way that you want to touch the world around us. I pray that you'd help us to do that, just to be available and willing to go and do whatever you would have us. We pray this in Jesus' name. Bless the remainder of this morning's service, we pray. Amen.